Welcome back, and let me welcome our distinguished guest here, Engineer Mostafa Nagari, Deputy Head of the Experts Association. We thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Mona, for your invitation today. And I think that we are all celebrating today announcement of the Minister of Agriculture about the huge increase of exports of agri-sector in Egypt.
And we are hopeful more and more would come
Sure.
over. Let me here start with, since you spoke about the increase of exports, let me here start with the national plan for agriculture so far and the land reclamation that has been seen, or expanding the land reclamation in Egypt so far.
Yeah. As we all know that the population of the global will be 9 billion within 2 decades only. And the demand of food in general needs to be increased 80% by what is done today. So Egypt was on this map, and Egypt was having a strategy 2050, which is leading to increase the area planted up to by 4 million fedans. And
2030?
No, it was first 2030 to lead to about 2.3, but 2050 will lead to 4 million fedans. So we started several projects in Egypt. The first one was the Reef al-Masri, was targeting 1.5 million fedans, and then it came the New Delta and the Toshka al-Khair. It started almost on the same period, and then Shar el-Awainat and other parts of the desert in Minya and and in northwest coast as well. So we are in the agriculture field. We see that huge investments are done in this field. A part of this plantation will be targeting the strategic crops such as wheat and corn, and the beet bulb, the root beet bulb, and others are targeting exports with higher value, like the green houses, or we call it the protective plantation, which is leading to 100,000 fedans, totally covered plantation, and we can see the impact of this production in exports volumes, which we will mention during the debate.
Now, let me here take this, because this is we're speaking here about a new way in the reclamation,
yes,
of lands. We're speaking about also new ways in the irrigation system.
Of course, yeah.
So let me here take you reading to
irrigation. Of course, we have to mention that there is financial initiatives with zero interest rate for transferring the flood irrigation in several areas in Egypt to the modern irrigation, and this is a big project. The other project is the paving and the covering sites of canals and the drainage all over Egypt, which is, we can see that in many of the villages in the Delta and in Upper Egypt is running, and we have reached up to about 3,800 kilometers at the moment, but the target at the end is 8,000, so we are still by the middle of the way. And then we have to talk about Reef al-Masri is one of the projects which is depending on the underground water. It will not use any fresh water through the Nile or through the fresh water, as we say. So it will be totally using the underground water with specific pumps, with a debate of who is going to control the pumps, either the privates or the government. But at the end, they are approaching now about 7 to 750,000, 50% of the project, depending totally about the groundwater table. Yeah.
When we speak about the Egyptian strategy, we have to reveal two issues, or why Egypt is putting a special strategy for agriculture We are aware that Egypt was an agricultural country. That was decades ago. And then it wants to return to this. So we're speaking about two important issues. The first one is food security, because of the current economic situation and the global supply chain, which has been disrupted by many of the world challenges. And we're also speaking about a huge population, growth in population. How do you view how Egypt is dealing with those two matters?
One of the main issues that Egypt is one of the biggest consumer and the importer of grains. And although there is a lot of trials to encourage farmers to plant grains such as wheat, such as corn, such as soybean seeds, but at the end, as you mentioned, population is always against all the challenges. It's a big challenge.
It is.
But at the time being that, on the other side, we are working on several issues with some institutions and some organizations like FAO, like UNIDO, as well, to change the habits of consumers in the carbohydrates food, because carbohydrates food is a major issue for Egyptians. So we see that the highest consumption of wheat all over the world is in Egypt. Maybe the second or third highest consumption in rice in the whole world is Egypt. So, and we are not a potato eater, okay? So Egypt is working on this sector to try to change the habits of consumption of the carbohydrates step by step towards potato. And why I'm mentioning potato, because production of 1 acre or 1 pedon of potato is about 22 to 25 tons, while production of wheat or rice is not more than 3 to 4 tons. So at the end, you always have to think about how to afford the needs of the people in a certain time. Of course, it's a big challenge, but I can see that according to the strategy of the Egyptian government, they are trying to make a balance between supply and demand and between production and imports. So at the time being, I'm a part of the Supreme Committee of the Strategic Crops in Egypt, so I can tell by figures and by numbers that we have sufficient stocks between 4 to 5 months of all the strategic food for the Egyptians at the time being. But as we mentioned before, that 2 issues happened last week, which is the withdrawal, the Russian withdrawal of the Black Sea grain agreement, and the decree of the Indian government to ban exports of rice.
But that was complemented by the Russian president during the Africa-Russia summit, that he will be supplying all the African countries with all the requested grains from the African continent, right?
Yeah. In my committee, we were the first to announce at the beginning of the Russian war to Ukraine that there should be there shouldn't be any use of food or medicine or fertilizers or power in such wars, always. And we have been mentioning that playing with several cards, while I mean at the end they have to come to agreement, but every party have to take as much cards in his hand before he sit to the negotiation table. So it's politics, but at the end the global and the people are suffering still a lot.
Food security.
Food security and food safety is the key word. Yeah.
Is a matter, a very contagious matter.
Correct.
Before we continue on with our, since we spoke about food security, so Before we continue on with our discussion, let's have this other report. And ongoing land reclamation projects are essential to food security and the national economy. Let's watch.
As Egypt is planning to increase cultivated lands to more than 15 million fidans by 2030, the state is implementing mega agricultural and reclamation projects in Sinai, Upper Egypt, the New Delta, Tushka, and east of Awainet in southwest Egypt. Increasing cultivated areas, boosting agricultural production, diversifying vertical and horizontal expansion projects are priorities to double the agricultural area and raise crop productivity. The importance of the projects not only meets the food needs of an increasing population, but boosts exports and generates much more needed foreign currency. In 2022, Egypt's agricultural exports reached 6.5 million tons, generating foreign exchange receipts worth $3.3 billion. This will be doubled by 2030. Attention is also being given to increasing the productivity of existing agricultural land. The goal is to create the new delta, where strategic crops like wheat, maize, and sugarcane will be cultivated, using the latest irrigation techniques alongside horticultural crops, including vegetables, fruit, and herbal plants for export. The new Delta project will extend the Nile Delta along the Mediterranean coast to reach Marsa Matruh. Established on a 2.2 million fidans, the reclamation project will cost an estimated £300 billion.